Well, I was born in Decatur, Indiana. My dad was a farmer. We lived out on a farm, and he did his work there at the farm. Well, I guess I lived there until I was probably around 10, I think, but raised on the farm till then. And my dad had horses and ponies. And we just, at the age of 4.5, I had a Perthes disease, which affected my hip. So I wasn't able to walk, and it went from hip to hip. So my dad bought me a pony to ride, so that's where I actually got started. You know, I sort of bonded with that pony when I was that age, and so we lived there for, like I said, I believe it was around 10 years. And we moved into another part. My dad took a job in town, but
you hit about 6 of my questions there, which is good. But I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay, so you were one of 6 kids?
yes.
What was that like, and what do you remember?
I had a great family of just real precious brothers and sisters, and we all actually grew up on the farm, and I'm the second youngest, so I got a brother that's younger than me, but other than that, you know, they were all older and actually all grew up together and moved off before we moved to the other place there in Decatur. But yes, I got 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
Did y'all all have chores on the farm that you had to do?
Basically, my brothers were, we had a dairy farm there. We had all kinds of animals. We had the pigs and chickens and a little few beef cattle, but mostly a dairy farm and a farmer. So yeah, everybody kind of did their chores.
Were your parents strict?
My parents were the greatest ever. They were not strict, no. They were just, I guess they were my buddies, you know. I used to sit on the fence posts and go down the line as my dad would farm, you know, so being with him was a thrill.
So, Perthes disease, you had Perthes. Tell us what that was specifically, and then what it meant for you for your day-to-day life.
Perthes disease is a softening of the hip joint, which sort of deteriorates and loses, it gets soft and kind of wears away. So actually the only way of healing them is immobility. So I would either walk on crutches, or when it was in both hips, my dad made me a scooter and I'd sit on the floor on that scooter and scoot around. So it was with me for, I believe, like 4.5 years.
Did you know at the time? Did you understand what you had, or?
Yeah, I did. I understood. It actually came from a bruise on my hip. We were in the hay mow swinging across the hay, and I bruised my hip, and it just showed up, you know, really big, and so we had to go have it checked. And at that time, you know, it never really hurt me that much. It just was the fact that I couldn't use it. So I just went on, didn't really bother me. I had a lot of fun with family and cousins and stuff, and so we always had gatherings and whatever.
Did you use crutches? When you were immobile, what does that mean? Does that mean you can't get out of bed?
No, I got around, and that's why my dad bought the pony, because I could always sit up there and go anywhere I wanted to. But either I walked on crutches, and I was pretty good at it. I could run pretty fast. But when it was in both hips, then it slowed me down. But as far as, I don't ever remember being frustrated with it.
When your dad got you the pony, did he buy it with that express intent, knowing that it was going to help?
Yeah, I believe so. He actually made me a pony cart for it too, so that when my cousins would come over, we would all jump in the pony cart and we'd all go. So yeah, he knew that was good therapy for me.
And did you have to have surgery? Sometimes people do, and
No, I didn't.
So you were raised on a farm, not in a rodeo family.
Correct.
So how did you get interested in rodeo?
I just went through, I think, every stage there was. I was in 4-H for 7 years, and I was 7 years consecutive grand champion. So I trained my own horse. When we moved into another part of Decatur on the other side, my dad bought me a young horse to train, and that's what I trained for 4-H. So Rusty was the grand champion for 7 years. So after that, we couldn't afford high dollar horses, so he would buy me horses to train, and through the years I had several horses. So I started out with going to like open shows, knew I could do the gymkhana and stuff, and then actually we used to do like pleasure and halter and everything in 4-H too, so I was kind of accustomed to doing about anything there was, other than no rodeo events really. Mm-hmm. But we went through that to the open shows, and I believe it was somewhere around 1974 they started the AQHA World Show, and we did a lot of the quarter horse competition in our area, next step up from the open shows, because there was so much competition and a lot of entries and a little more money you could win. So we went to the AQHA, and as we went on, I guess probably when Carrie and I got married, we did kind of this as a family. We would go to open shows and do all the events there was, mm-hmm. and train different horses as we went. Mm-hmm. And of course there was, let's see, Todd was born in 1969, so we mounted him on my old 7-year consecutive 4-H champion, and he learned to ride on him. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of went up too, to where we all kind of did it together.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to back you up just a bit.
Okay.
So it was almost sounds like it was a natural progression. You know, you did all these things.
Just anything that was a little bit tougher, we had to try.
Yeah, you did. And so, and it also sounds like your family was supportive of rodeo as a choice for you.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And then, what types of jobs did you pursue while you were also pursuing barrel racing?
Well, when I was got out of high school, I was a secretary at a bank for a little while, and just, I don't know, I wasn't comfortable in that setting, so I worked at a casting company where my dad worked, and I worked there for a while, and went to the Fleetwood Motor Homes, and built cabinets there for a long time. And
I'm going to stop you there. What do you built cabinets? What do you mean? You actually built?
Yeah, actually kind of built my main job was to put the paneling or the skin on them.
Mm-hmm. Did you have experience for that when you started?
No.
Mm-hmm. Did you like it?
I sort of did, but when it got to where they were working so much overtime, and maybe on Saturdays or something, it started interfering with the horses. So mm-hmm. I think I sold my first one in, was it 78, 76, 75? Yeah, because I won the world on this horse in 74, and they bought it shortly after that. So when I sold that first one, it was hard to do, mm-hmm. but I knew I'd just have to start over. So we went from, I guess, running the quarter horse shows till they had the first world championship.
Which I'm going to ask you about. But I want to know when and how did you meet Carrie?
He used to ride his bicycle out into the country because he liked horses too, but never really, actually another friend of his was, I don't know, I sort of knew him for some reason, but he brought him out to the country, and I believe his name was Bill Landrum. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he brought him out, and he loved to ride, so we mounted him up, and I had a bunch of ponies, so we just rode for years.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about your early married life. Where did y'all live? What did you do?
Well, that was when I worked at most of it, I believe, was when I worked at the casting company. I worked, like I said, at the bank for a little while, but went to the casting company, and it just got so busy and so many hours and we enjoyed going on the weekends and stuff, and so we just decided that it was more prosperous for me to just do this rather than to not be able to do what I love to do. So we took a chance, and I believe I sold my first horse at that time, and I told the boss, I said, well, I've sold this horse for a lot of money, and I think I can do it again. And he says, well, I hope you can, because it's going to take one to every year to you know, make what you do here. And I said, well, I'm hoping so. But that was it. That was the end of it. And
so you and Carrie made this kind of this decision together. It sounds like he was supportive.
Yeah.
And when did you? So you had your first son in '69. Is that right? Okay. And you have two boys.
Yes.
So tell me what your life was like when they were young, and you're also still kind of looking at barrel racing.
We did. Todd got started pretty early. He rode my 4-H horse and learned to ride, and he did a lot of winning on him, and he was pretty old at that time, so we mounted him up on a couple other different horses, and he had a good time with it and really enjoyed it, and seemed to go really well. We all just enjoyed it. And then in '69 or '79, then Joey was born, so there were 10 years between them.
Right. But what was that like, raising two boys while you're also trying to pursue this?
Not a problem. Just normal life, you know, get up, go to school, and come home on the weekends. We'd all load up and go to the horse shows.
Did they know what you were doing? Were they aware, you know?
You know, I don't know whether they knew. They just knew we were going to the horse show that weekend, and we were going to have, you know, some fun with friends and camp out and try and win some money.
So never any complaints, I want to play my Nintendo or whatever?
No, not really. We never really pushed them to do what they, you know, whether they wanted to. Joey was a little slower at getting gone. He liked to play, so we just left him play, and then all of a sudden he decided he wanted to ride, so we got him a pony, and he learned to ride on him, and then I turned over one of my futurity horses to him, and he done really well. He had a chance to sell him, so he sold him, and then he jumped on the rope horse and went from there. But he's talented.
So in your late 20s, in 1974, you won your very first world title, right? Can you tell me about that?
Yes, that was the very first one was at Louisville, Kentucky, and it was, you know, a pretty prestigious thing because nobody'd ever thought of being world champion quarter horse people at that time. So I had a horse that was qualified in both the barrels and pulls in the junior division, and he won them both. So that was fun, you know, that was a lot of fun. And then it moved to Oklahoma City. So from then on, when we'd qualify, we'd have to travel from Indiana to Oklahoma City. But we qualified several horses. Kerry used to ride, and he would qualify some, and he had a couple really good horses. We would do the point system where he would get honors, and we'd both get honors at the end of the year for points accumulated, and so it was good.
Was there ever a time you got tired of it and you just wanted to stop?
No, not really. You get frustrated sometimes when you come to a stumbling block, or you can't, you know, just don't seem like your horse is progressing or something. You go, I'm like quitting, but it just isn't in me to quit. So, but no, never. Yeah. No, that's. Matter of fact, I had to bring my horse with me down here.
Are there challenges to working so closely with your spouse?
Oh, sometimes he'll kind of give me these, you know, tidbits where he don't agree with something, but basically we we worked together good. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have went anywhere. Because I don't go by myself, and we just did everything together.
Yeah. So, your success last year is widely known, but I want to hear you talk about it. So I want you to tell me what all happened in your rodeo career last year.
Well, it was just, I'd say, a miracle. I mean, it's just a storybook thing. I went in the fall, in October, to basically, I wanted to go to Rodeo Houston because I'd been there before and I'd won it before, but just didn't have the horse. Most of the time I had customer horses and they'd sell them or whatever, but I had my own that I decided after all these years I was going to keep him, and we were going to just do what we wanted to do and go where we wanted to go, and that's what we did. We went that fall so that we could win enough money to be in the top 3 to maybe make Houston. And you know, if it happened, okay, and if it didn't, okay. Well, it happened. So we went to Houston and ended up winning it, which was phenomenal. But if you win Houston, you get called to Calgary. So we were, you know, didn't really want to, because I'd traveled around quite a bit, really didn't want to just travel all over like that again, because he's sort of semi-retired and wanted to go, but couldn't really be gone that long. So we went on up to Calgary. We went the 4th of July and done really well on the way up there. And when we got up there, lo and behold, we ended up winning all 4 rounds and as much money as you could win. So that was amazing.
Were you like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it? Or were you feeling pretty confident when you went in?
I just come through the alleyway and try and win all I can win. I don't know whether it's confidence or just the love of doing what I do and riding my own, basically as a rule, my own trained horses. It's just a bond and a fun thing and extra money.
Explain how someone gets to wear the #1 contestant number at the NFR.
The person that wins the most money over all events and all categories is the top money winner goes in with the #1. And I did that. With Houston and Calgary, it just really boosted it. Although they used 50,000 from Calgary, they didn't give you the whole 100 plus the go-around. So it amounted to quite a bit.
Do you know when the last time was that a barrel racer got to wear the #1?
Yeah, I believe it was Sherry Survey. Yeah.
1967.
Yeah, I didn't know what year it was, but I knew Sherry and of course Charmaine.
So much publicity was being given to your age. What do you think about that?
Well, at first I didn't like it too well. I don't know. I guess doing autographs and interviews and all that stuff, I had so many people come up to me and tell me I was an inspiration, that they were going to get up off the couch. I started feeling like, well, okay, just, it'll be all right. So I got used to it.
Have you ever gone against the norm in your 4 decades long career?
As far as?
The way you train, the way you compete.
No, I really just got my own ideas, and that's how I do it, and it just works for me. I've rode a few horses for other horses when I got into a situation where I had to ride another horse or something. It's kind of difficult for me, but there was a couple of them there that other people trained that I'd done really well on. But basically, it's just I guess it's just how it makes you feel when you train your own and you go out there and compete against the best and win, and it didn't make any difference what age they were.
So there was never any conventional wisdom that you went against and said, I'm not doing that?
No, not really. I've always been the kind of person that feels like you can get more with sugar than the hard stick. So I've always been basically a person that will bond with a horse and train in the same style that I always did. But I try to meet the horse part way too. You know, if they got a little different style, I try to bend with them.
But you just said something, the sugar and the hard stick. What kind of a parent were you with your boys?
Mediocre. Mediocre. I wasn't strict, but you know, we tried to bring them up as best we could, and you know, that's all about these days you can do, and I think I got two of the best ever.
To what do you credit your longevity in the field?
Just don't want to quit. I
Stubbornness.
don't. Yeah, it's just I don't know what you want to call it, but I guess that's what I've done all my life, and I just feel as though I can still go.
Do you think your age has been a benefit, or has it been a hurdle?
Sometimes a hurdle because of maybe the publicity part of it, where they say, "Oh, she's 68, she's 69," you know. But I'd rather they just say, "Here she comes," you know. But yeah, but it's, you know. And then whenever you, like at the NFR last year when we was sitting there and people come up and said, "I just cannot believe you can do what you do. You are such an inspiration." So, you know, on the other hand, you know, it kind of makes you feel good then after that. So.
Well, you are. I mean, you are. So that really, that's really a thing. I mean, for a lot of people, like that person who you said, you know, they were on the couch.
Yes.
That really is quite an inspiration. I mean, I mean, even me personally. I mean, I'm inspired.
No, thank you. That's what they tell me.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I mean, you know, start telling people you're 78.
Yeah.
So how many grandchildren do you have?
Just one.
Okay, and what does she think about what you do?
Well, the only thing I can say that really, really tickled me was not too awful long ago, she asked her mommy if her mommy was somebody special. She said, "Is she a celebrity or something?" So, you know, we're just buds, and she just makes me happy. And so I guess she's just a lot of inspiration to me because she's a lot like me. She rides them ponies and she takes care of them, and she just does everything with them, and she's a pretty good rider.
So you were talking about training your horses. What do you look for in a horse?
Pretty much conformation. I just like for them to look like they're, you know, pretty well balanced, and something that could maybe get across the ground or run a little bit, maybe some running blood, but basically I like to look at them. I like to look at them. I like a pretty one.
Has there ever been a time that you thought, oh, you know, that's a good one, and then it really impacted you?
Yeah, basically you do get them kind, and they don't work out, but if they're not a top-notch horse, they may be good enough for somebody else. So you just go on, finish them out, and match them up to somebody that they fit well, and move them on.
Right. So speaking of horses, great horses, Rare Fred, I think, was one for you, and Mo. And we're redoing our second floor, and so we're exploring this idea of how it's never just a horse. You know, it can be so much more.
Right.
Have you had instances where it's never just a horse, and can you give me an example?
Where it's never just a horse?
Yeah, where it's been so much more for you than that, and you can pick any horse.
Oh.
You can pick a couple.
Pick a couple. Well, you know, I guess, you know, when I sold my first world champion, you know, that was it was a hard thing to do because of you know, that bond issue, you know, you just get so bonded to them. And of course, after that first one, then you figure, well, if you did it this time, you could do it again. So just continually did that. But I trained for the public for quite a while there too. And those horses would go home, or, you know, they maybe would have a futurity derby year, and then they would do something else with them or whatever, because I would be taking on like 3-year-olds or something for the next year. So, you know, Rare Fred was an exceptional horse. He was, I believe he was 2. The owner approached me at a quarter horse show and said, I'd like to get into this, but I need a horse. And so we hunted around for one and found Fred. And he decided he would go ahead and buy him. So I got him as a 3-year-old. I think he was 2, but he sent him back to his farm in Illinois. And then the next year I got him and started training on him. And he was, he progressed kind of slow. He did well, but it was a slow process. And it just seemed like when he got to be into his 7 or 8-year-old, he was just awesome. Just started really clicking. But when I first moved to Oklahoma, I had a horse that was very exceptional. Also, it was a hard deal, because when he was 7, I'd rodeoed up to Kemper Arena at Kansas City, and he had a heart attack there in the arena, and I lost him there and had to start over. So he was one that plays a special part in my heart too, but I owned him. We bought him as I believe a 2-year-old, and went from there with him.
Had a heart attack while you were on him in
Yes.
the arena?
Yeah, he just flipped over coming out of the 3rd barrel, and there's where he laid.
And you had no idea?
No, we had no idea. He had an aneurysm. Yeah, you'd have never known.
That's tough.
But he was one special horse in my life too. But when my buckskin Mo that I'm riding now come along, he was one that I planned on keeping and having fun. We just didn't really train too many. I didn't train too many outside horses at that time. And we just decided we were going to have fun and just do this thing with him. And I was offered a lot of money for him, but I decided it just wasn't worth it, you know. And he's just took me to so many new titles and stuff that he's just irreplaceable. This past year, I've been home with him the whole year, rehabbing him from a deep flexor tendon injury, which he's now just starting to come back to maybe competition here for long. But you asked about the rodeo part of it. When we were in Indiana, the IPRA had some rodeos back there, and kind of dibbled in it a little bit and went to the finals, the IPRA finals when I was back there. But when we moved to Oklahoma, I was still training a lot of colts and stuff, but still I would do circuit rodeos, so we went to that part of it. When it got to the Rare Fred area, my daughter-in-law, PJ, and I, we went pretty heavy there for like 8 or 9, I believe it was, 08, 09. And we both qualified that year and went to the finals in 09. So that was when Caden was little and didn't have school yet. So that was, you know, just something that just kind of got in my blood at that time. And really, really enjoyed the rodeo. I had went through the 4-H, the open show, the quarter horse, and everything was big in the rodeo scene, so that's where I wanted to go. So.
What are some of your best memories of being on the rodeo circuit?
Oh, I guess just all the people you meet. I mean, it's kind of hard to fathom that you are driving all over the United States from rodeo to rodeo, and meeting new people, seeing new places, and winning money. It paid for the way, you know. So we got to see a lot, you know, of the United States doing that, and and making it profitable.
If you had to do it all over again, would you change anything?
I think if I had to do it all over again, I'd rodeo a little bit sooner because I really enjoy it. But when my kids were little, and I just wasn't comfortable being away from them. The first time, I think was it Todd was little? We went to a jackpot away from home, and he stayed with his grandma, and we had to go back and get him. It just wasn't right.
Well, he was upset, or you were upset?
Me. Me. So it was hard to leave them when they were little, and they got out of high school and stuff. Then it was a little more, yeah, it was a little easier. Now I got my granddaughter, and it's hard to leave her.
What's next for you? Now what do you do?
Well, I'm hoping that my horse comes back strong, and we just go out there and do what we did the year before. There was no place really, as far as rehab, that I knew my horse would be able to handle without me, because was stall bound with no exercise, and so I entertained him. I just, brush him and just entertain him all the time. Maybe just walk outside for a little grass or something. But he's the kind that's really good in the barn, but he just, I just got a bond with him, and just didn't want to leave him because I knew I could fix him, but it would be a year. We didn't know how long, but it ended up being a year. So last year was probably the worst year ever for me, but I was with him, and I'm getting him well.
I want to be mindful of your time, and I know there's a lot of people downstairs who want to talk to you. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about or add?
Well, I don't know. I guess one thing that it's always on my mind is that God had this plan for me, and I think that everything happened through Him, and I appreciate everything.